Our story begins with a blonde girl who is submerged in green water and saying she wishes someone to love her. At that moment, we see our protagonist, Daichi Kakeru, a 16 years old boy who is returning home after classes and buys a drink from a vending machine and takes it home. After taking a bath, he takes a sip of his drink and it turns into a beautiful girl, whom we saw at the beginning. Daichi thinks it's their first kiss and is surprised as she is also. She is scared and embarrassed of seeing him, and Daichi acts like a and wants to approach the girl, and angrily she knocks him down with her powers. Then we meet Aaron walking down a corridor and comes across a half-naked boy running and crying. She arrives at an office to speak with Mr. Otoya, a government official from the Ministry of Economy, whom tells him not to call her Aaron but Kizaki, who is his second name. Kizaki tells him that they found a new steel Akikan in the house of a high school boy, and we see Otoya her lips as he said his name. We return to Daichi's house, and the mysterious girl tells him she threw compressed carbon dioxide at him since she is the melon drink he drank, which make her took this human form. Daichi still begins to trying to understand the situation, quickly draws the conclusion that the truth behind it all is that it is a dream. The girl notices in that moment that he has a display case with cans, and Daichi tells he likes to collect rare and limited edition cans, and she is surprised because they are all aluminum. And when she turns to say something to Daichi, he is making weird poses while still, and she hits him again with her power for being all. Daichi can't believe it's not a dream, and then the girl approaches him and takes his hand to lead her to her ear, pulling on her earring and showing her how it transforms back in a can. At that moment, we see Otoya and Kizaki forcing their way inside to Daichi's apartment. Otoya introduces himself and tells him about the government investigation to find the Ekikans, and seeing our protagonist, yet he wants to get closer to him questionably, and Daichi, for being scared, ends up perplexed on the floor. Kizaki tells Otoya to leave him, and when he joked about her, she accidentally hits him and knocks him out, this being their reason to leave Daichi's house. After this, Daichi takes his drink again, and the young woman appears again in his human form and kissing him. She, embarrassed by the kiss, tells him that she will live with him from now on since he is her owner now. The next day at school, we see Daichi thinking about what happened at his house, and we see the different characters and friends or our boy introduced to the story having interesting and funny situations. Already at home, Daichi talks with his Akikan in the form of a can, and that tells him that he has to drink it for her to exist, but she has to drink from the can and not in a glass. Daichi uses a straw to get her become human, and she explains that she needs to be recharged with the same juice to continue existing. Daichi goes shopping the same drink, and she drinks it, and he buys himself a beer, which makes her mad at being mocked and starts throwing her cans of collection. As Daichi squeezes her hoop and turns her into can again. The next morning, he doesn't drink the juice to push her to learn how to behave better at home. Returning home, Daichi talks to her, but she ignores it, worrying the protagonist. So he decides to drink it, and she as a human appears to be sick, as she lost her gas as a drink. So Daichi gives her mouth-to-mouth respiration, and she wakes up, and very embarrassed, she tells him that he didn't have to do that, he only had to add more juice. She says this because she is used to being taken and disposed of, and Daichi says that he couldn't throw a beautiful girl like her. But since Daichi does not stop being jokes with her, and she slaps him. But in the end, Daichi says he wants to give her a cute name, which is Melon, making the girl really happy. We see a scene in a school where a young Kakeru is holding and committing what it looks like and Najimi is beside him scared. This happens to be a dream, and our boy wakes up scared. He gets up and goes for a drink, and of course he takes Melon, making her to appear as human again, and after fooling her about their kiss, she attacks him as always. Then our girl is watching a baseball match, even when she doesn't understand the game. She enjoys to watch it. Then they have a little talk about which Melon doesn't know what it means, and Kakeru wants to take advantage, but then she sees the home run made by the baseball team and hits Kakeru. He yells at her that if she wants to play, she has to do it outside, and Melon explains that she will lose her juice in an instant, so Kakeru asks her if she isn't boring or doesn't feel alone at home, and with a sad expression, she says no. At that moment, we see Kizaki handing a file with all the information about Kakeru to Otoya, and they talk about Otoya is only interested in the boys' owners of the Akikans, and that he's more strict with the girls' owners of the Akikans. By reading Kakeru's information, he finds out something that seems very important. At school, we have Kakeru begging to Najimi to help him and saying he will do anything she wants, and of course Najimi starts to fantasize about something with Kakeru. The petition is Toy asks Najimi's parents to negotiate with the school authorities to join Melon to the school, since they make big donations to the place, and that night Kakeru tells Melon the good news since he wants her to do something with her life. At that moment, Otoya and Kizaki arrive there and destroy Kakeru's door to go to talk to him. Otoya explains that their mission is to make an event where the Akikans decide which juice cans are better, the aluminum or the steel ones. However, the problem is that Otoya wants the Akikans to fight to decide which one is the best. Otoya is convincing Melon since he says the cans will be appreciated, and adds that Kakeru will help her because he did a great job at the event 2 years ago. By mentioning this, Kakeru has a quick memory of the dream, so he kicks them out of his home. The next day, Melon starts her first day at school introducing herself as Kakeru's cousin and grabs everyone's attention for her beauty. But the girls tell her to be careful with Kakeru since he's a Kakeru is by the girls, and Melon goes out of the classroom and meets Najimi, who tells her Kakeru did a lot for her to join the school, which makes her to be confused. Going back to classroom, Najimi asks Kakeru to buy her lunch, but he invites Melon and Gigolo to go with them, making Najimi be sad. At lunchtime, Melon and Kakeru had a little fight, which leads them to the freezing room when Melon is about to attack Kakeru because of his jokes. Najimi appears and closes the door. Kakeru breaks accidentally the door's latch, so they are locked up. Najimi starts to freeze and Kakeru gives his jacket to her. So Najimi talks about the story of the dream in which 2 years ago, Najimi was about to be at school and Kakeru, by trying to save her, took one of the robbers' gun and shot them by self-defense. However, this produced that everyone talked about Kakeru and forcing him to move, and remembering this makes Kakeru have a sad expression. By accident, the three of them fall and end up with the girls on the floor and Kakeru above them. And then Yurika opens the door and attacks Kakeru since she thinks he did something to Najimi, and finally at the end of the day, Kakeru and Melon have a cute talk, and we can see a mysterious girl watching them and having the same earring as Melon. We have a little girl with purple hair named Budoki who says to Melon that she's a steel can, and Melon, surprised, asks, how does she know that? And the girl says Otoya explained her that the steel Akikans have a left earring. Kakeru asks her if she's going to participate in the Akikan's elections, and she confirms that. Then they go to talk to the theater room and the Akikans start to fight, but the little girl has some unique and full attacks which make Melon to think she will never beat her. However, Budoki drinks her grape juice and suddenly increases her powers, and the real fight starts. When Melon is about to attack her, Kakeru stops her and says, Budoki, it's just a little girl and she doesn't have to take this Akikan's elections so seriously and acting as a fool. Budoki runs away and says she will come back to beat her. After that, we have Otoya and Kizaki in a pool talking about the Akikan's fight and being disappointed because none of them win. We come back to Kakeru and Melon talking about Budoki, and then Melon asks him about what is happiness for them, the juice cans, and Kakeru says they feel the same as humans, and she gets mad and takes another way to come back home. Alone, Kakeru stops to buy a drink and meets Najimi. Najimi asks Kakeru why is he always talking to vending machines, and he says that is a hobby to him, and then he suddenly asks her if he can go to her Hawaii's that night. Najimi is blushed because of this, and Kakeru says her to invite their friends to have a study session. At Najimi's really messy house, she prepares black tea to Kakeru and he accidentally spills it out in his clothes, so Najimi offers to help him take off his shirt and washes it. Kakeru refuses, so he takes a shower and then she washes his clothes. Kakeru is almost finishing his bath and Najimi enters the bathroom to help him wash his back as when they were children. At first, Kakeru is embarrassed, then he accepts and they have a nice talk thanking each other for being a support in each other's life. Kakeru makes a joke that if Najimi wants to do something to him, she can give her to him, but she says it's okay. Kakeru is surprised and accidentally opens the water tap and she gets showing her attractive, causing a tension between them, and she goes out the bathroom because she's embarrassed. When Kakeru ends his bath, he sees Yurika playing around with Najimi, and also Gigolo is there with them. Najimi and Yurika get and continue fooling around, so Kakeru goes outside to the balcony and realizes he bought a melon juice, which makes him think why did he buy that. We see Melon walking alone and a guy who wanted to approach her, and then she continues her walking. Finally, Najimi goes for a drink in the vending machine and buys a juice, which she drinks, and this transforms in Yell, a new Akikan who recognizes Najimi as his owner. And Najimi cries out loud because that was her first kiss. Still at night, Melon is sitting next to the vending machine and drinking her juice, and then sees Yell, who tries to find some coins to buy her juice. Melon is nice to her by buying the juice, and then both see their earrings, so take distance and start to fight during that night. At that moment, Kakeru goes out to find Najimi since she hasn't come home for a while, and then she sees her in the hall being and sad. After crying a lot, she convinces Kakeru to go for a date with her, and then she finally sleeps on Kakeru's arms. The next morning, everyone wake up and we see Gigolo and tied by Yurika. Najimi and Yurika take a bath together, and Kakeru decides to go home. Kakeru sees Melon sit on the floor and with a in her arm, and he offers to help her and so ends their tension and be friends again. Melon tells Kakeru about the new Akikan, and since he sees how worried is Melon about the Akikan elect, he agrees to be part of the event. At that moment, Otoya and Kizaki are talking to Najimi and Yell and explaining the whole situation and gives them the Akikan radar, which alerts when a steel Akikan is around them. After this, Otoya and Kizaki go to Kakeru's house to do the same, and Kakeru says they accept to be part of the event, but they won't fight. After Kizaki and Otoya leave, Kakeru makes some jokes to Melon, and she ignores him and goes for a juice, and Kakeru follows her, but they leave the radar at home, which is alerting the presence of an Akikan. At that moment, outside her home, Najimi is talking with Yell about not participating in the elect, so she gives her money and says her to go wherever she wants. They look at each other from the bridge, and feeling sad, Najimi wishes Yell to take care. After that, Najimi goes for a walk thinking about her date with Kakeru to feel better and ends in the park, wondering why she isn't happy, and suddenly Budoko appears and offers Najimi a talk to her to feel well. Mizaki appears since she was looking for Budoko, and when Najimi sees her earring, it talk about the Akikans. So Najimi decides to find Yell, who was already at her house because Najimi told her to go to a place she likes. So Najimi accepts Yell to live with her, making Yell happy. At school, we see Kizaki as the temporal teacher of Kakeru's class, and of course Kakeru, Melon, and Najimi are surprised. Kakeru and Melon go to talk to Kizaki after classes, and she explains that she's there because she has to control them and the other Akikan's owner, and this news left them with doubt about who is the other owner. Again in the classroom, Najimi wants to talk with Kakeru about their date, and sadly he says he won't make it to the date since he has some things to care about, which of course is the matter of finding the new Akikan. With a sad expression but trying to smile, Najimi says it's okay. After classes, Kakeru and Melon are prepared to receive the new Akikan, but nothing happens, so they go home. It's weekend already, so the protagonist and Melon go to the amusement park to see if they can find the Akikan with its owner, and at the same time they are followed by Kizaki, who has 1,000 of cute cats following her. Kizaki calls Najimi to meet her in the amusement park, which is a lie since the objective is that Najimi finds Kakeru and Melon there. Kizaki talks with Otoya and finishes her mission there. At that moment, Kakeru and Melon go for something to eat and realize that Melon can eat food as long as it has melon as an ingredient, and then meet Budoko, who wants to fight again, but none of them with Melon have enough power to fight. Misaki calls Budoko, and she runs away again. Kakeru and Melon continue their time there and go to the Ferris wheel, where they have a good moment together. Almost in the evening, Najimi finally sees them together, so runs away being really sad. At that moment, Yell tries to help her and asks Najimi to give her an order to do something with Kakeru, and Najimi orders her to destroy him. In a moment when Melon goes to buy some clothes, leaving Kakeru alone, Yell appears and attacks him, and we can see he's seriously injured while Melon is coming back happy without knowing what's happening. When Yell is about to continue attacking Kakeru, Najimi appears and stops her by transforming her and can again. Melon appears and sees the disaster and tells Najimi to stay away from them, so Najimi does it. Melon wants to take Kakeru to the hospital, but he refuses since doesn't want Najimi to have problems, and finally he faints. At home, Melon cures Kakeru's let him sleeping to rest, and finally decides to go out by letting a goodbye letter and finding Yell to take revenge. At that moment, Najimi tells Yell to go once and for all of her life, and then Melon appears attacking Yell, but says to Najimi to go to Kakeru's home. Melon and Yell go to the baseball World Cup field to fight with all their power and end up everything. Kakeru wakes up and sees Melon's letter, and when he wants to run to find her, Najimi appears at his door, and they have a deep and lovey talk and decide to find the Akikans to stop this nonsense fight. Suddenly, Yurika calls Najimi to invite her to see the moonlight together, but Najimi says she can't, and then Yurika says she knows she's looking for someone since she's the so-called witch, and Najimi tells her to say where is that person she's looking for. Since they are in a traffic jam, Kakeru calls Gigolo to help him and tails his motorbike to find the Akikans quickly, and leaving Gigolo in the street all confused but happy to hear from Kakeru that he appreciates him as a friend. In a moment, they are about to slip because of a banana's peel, and suddenly they appear in some kind of fantasy where Yurika looks like a real witch, and at the same time she saved them from having an accident. The Akikans continue fighting but feeling weak since they use all of their power, and when everything is about to end up with a colossal attack from Melon, Kakeru uses a baseball bat to send this dangerous melon ball away. Najimi also appears, and both of them tell the Akikans to stop fighting since they don't need to do that to be loved because they as their owners already love them. So everything ends up and they return home all together, and we see Otoya and Kizaki talking about even when the Akikans didn't end the fight, the elect is just starting. At school, we see Yell as a transfer student since Najimi wants her to have the same experience as Melon as a student. Everyone gets excited by her beauty and mysterious behavior since she introduced herself as Najimi's maid. Then in Zakaki's math class, Yell is annoying Melon by playing with her hair, and they start to discuss, and even Kakeru is involved. So for disturbing the class, Kizaki asks Kakeru to solve the problem in the board. Kakeru takes advantage of this and starts to make jokes with Kizaki, making her feel embarrassed. And then Yurika ends this by hitting Kakeru with a chair, and when she's about to attack him with her cards, and then Najimi stops her by saying that Kakeru is important to her so she can't hurt him. Yell talks with Melon about how slow she is to react and protect her owner, which makes Melon to feel ashamed. After that, they have the gym class and have to play a baseball match, and Kakeru says out loud that Melon is an expert in baseball. So everyone appreciates her for that, and the game starts. Melon starts as a batter and Kakeru as a pitcher, but sadly she fails in hitting Kakeru's ball, so Melon changes the position as a pitcher. At this time, Yell is the batter. Yell hits Melon's ball, so they start to run to win the game, but the Akikans forget the objective and start to follow each other and running around the whole school in order to fight. Once again, Kakeru appears to stop them and lies to Yell by saying she has to look for Najimi if she's okay, so Yell runs away. Yell comes back to the field and ends up winning the game without knowing, but Yurika now wants to challenge her, having Najimi as a prize. Yurika is the pitcher but uses a dirty strategy, which is to shake her to distract Yell, since Najimi mentioned in class that Yell loves things that shakes and distract a lot. So Yell fails in catching the ball because of this and loses the game, but is comforted by Najimi. At the end of class, Kakeru and Melon are walking when Kakeru receives a call from Otoya saying that he saw everything at school and that the Akikan's elect is now over, which makes Kakeru feel angry and ends the call. Melon gets worried about this, but Kakeru takes her to buy a phone for her, to feel safe if she has something to say, which makes her really happy. Melon finds a ticket of the floating islands and says Kakeru she wants to go there, but he says that he's going with Najimi as a compensation for failing their previous date. Once in the floating islands, Kakeru and Najimi start their date in the exciting place and go to swim a little bit since Kakeru doesn't know how to do it and Najimi teaches him. At that moment, we see Melon and Yell hiding behind the plants since they both are worried about their owners having a date. At the same time, we see Yurika and Gigolo also following them as Yurika is jealous of their date, and of course Gigolo tries to f with her, which doesn't result at all. Also, we see Otoya and Kizaki, they're resting a little bit more than controlling the protagonist and his date. Kakeru and Najimi continue their date and go to the slides to play a little bit, and they have an moment since they have to be hugged to go down the slide, and because of the turbulence, they change places and Kakeru grabs Najimi's. And when they finally go down to the pool, they hit Gigolo, who was there after being hit by Yurika. Kakeru and Najimi goes for an ice cream, and the Akikans continue following them and feeling uncomfortable of seeing them this together and having a great time. At that moment, the little Badoko appears and wants to chase the Akikans, and Yell tries to be close to her and pats her head, but Badoko gets scared and runs away, which makes Yell to be confused. Melon grabs Yell and continue following Kakeru and Najimi. Najimi asks Kakeru to go to the Ferris wheel as a last activity to do, so they go there as well as Yurika and Gigolo to watch them from behind. In a moment, Najimi tries to confess her love to Kakeru and asks him if he wants her to be his girlfriend, but sadly Kakeru is asleep so he doesn't listen a word. Then, because the Ferris wheel starts to malfunction, Kakeru falls above Najimi and wakes up, and Yurika and Gigolo also fall. Melon and Yell see this and get worried, so Yell runs to save her owner, but when she says Kakeru and Najimi are hugging and protecting each other, she gets even more mad and starts to shake their cabinet, and Melon stops her and leads her to another place to calm her down. Then Yell admits she felt desperate when she saw them together, making Melon to think about her feelings towards Kakeru. At the end, Najimi acts as if he's mad to Kakeru for not listening to her, and he apologizes, so Najimi murmurs that it's too early to make a confession, and they end their date making jokes. Kakeru is talking with Melon about she has to pay her phone's bill, so she has to get part-time job to do so. He takes her to a place he used to work too, which is a maid cafe whose owner is Bunny Nankai, Kakeru's master, and a really eccentric man who uses a Chinese dress and bunny ears. Then after finishing school, Najimi and Yell run to get to a shop which has a special lower prices event, but Najimi realizes her watch is broken, so they were too late to get to the shop. The afternoon, Melon starts working as a maid, and her first clients are Kakeru and the rest of their friends, who are talking about celebrating Halloween and Yurika's birthday, but the poor Melon only makes mistakes and breaks things since she's not used to do this kind of work. At night, Najimi talks with Yell about how surprising is that Melon is working, and Yell says she also wants to get a job because she wants to get something. Najimi says she doesn't need to do that since she can buy her anything, but Yell refuses, and because she can't explain Najimi her reasons, she retracts her decision, and Najimi gets worried. In the same night, while Najimi is sleeping, Yell goes out to talk with a group of men in the street and says everything is for owner. The next day at school, Najimi invites Kakeru to go shopping for the party, and he invites Melon too, and they continue talking about Yell, who's acting strange since a while ago. The three of them go shopping and suddenly see Yell in the street, and they think at first that she may be looking for another Akikan, but then Kakeru mentions that earlier that day Yell asked him if he knew about a night job. Kakeru says that he made a joke about dirty night jobs, but this worries Najimi since Yell is really innocent, so they decide to look after her. Finally, they find Yell, who is working in construction, and Najimi says her how mad she is for not saying anything to her, because she thought she will be in danger. Both of them get sad and run in separate ways, so Kakeru orders Melon to follow Yell, and he will follow Najimi, which once again produces Melon to be sad. At Najimi's home, Kakeru comforts her and advises her to be honest with Yell and tell her how much she cares about her. Then going back his home and also returning to get the things they bought, he meets Melon, who already grabbed everything. They start talking, and suddenly Melon gets emotional and says he's a liar because he promised her to never let her alone. So she throws everything at him, including her bag with her phone, and runs away. Kakeru sees her phone is open with some messages, and they turned out to be messages Melon sent to herself as a way of personal diary saying how much she misses Kakeru. At the same time, Najimi receives a box which is a clock Yell bought her with a letter, thanking her for taking care of her as her owner. Say Najimi goes to find Yell. They meet under the bridge and talk about their feelings and finally fix their problems again. Melon is in the park trying to play catch with a baseball ball all alone, and then a glove falls in front of her and Kakeru appears with another glove, since he bought them because Melon mentioned before she wanted to play catch. Kakeru encourages Melon to say how she feels about him, and she says the only thing she needs is to be next to him, so Kakeru hugs her, and they fall on the ground while laughing and end watching the moonlight together. They have Eureka's party and have a great time together. Alone at home with the hot weather, Melon is resting on the floor, reading a magazine and drinking juice, which she accidentally throws in her clothes and on the floor. She decides to wash her clothes, and Kakeru's too as a favor, and after all her work, she takes a refreshing bath with ice and her juice cans. Suddenly it starts to rain heavily, so she runs wearing a towel to take the clothes inside the house, but sadly they get wet again. She's about to use the dry machine, and then Kakeru arrives home and make jokes about her wearing only a towel. We see Budoko having a deep sleep and even fallen from her bed without waking up, and Misaki's cat tries to take one of the grapes she has in her hair, but he can't make since Budoko moves a lot because she's dreaming about fixing with the Akikans. The cat gives up, and then Budoko gets up and goes for a drink and sees Hurlsif in the mirror and surprises for her messy hair. She tries to fix her hair but can't do it since Misaki always helps her, but she decides to use her hair naturally and then starts to play as if she was Cinderella. She grabs all of her plushies and plays this time as if she was Snow White with the 7 dwarfs. Misaki goes back home and finds Budoko sleeping on the floor with her plushies. At Najimi's house, we see Yell washing the dishes and cleaning Najimi's room, where she plays a little bit with her plushies. She starts to wash Najimi's clothes and takes one of Najimi's and puts on herself and gets embarrassed. After taking a shower, Yell sits to take her juice and by reading her name in the can, goes for a dictionary to look for the definition of her name. After this, she goes to the balcony and screams meow, alerting all the cats of the neighborhood. She takes some snacks to eat and using her power, cuts all the bag labels and puts them in another bag she has. While hanging the clothes outside, a dragonfly appears and Yell starts to follow it like a playful cat. Then a cat with a bunch of other cats appear because of Yell's previous meal. She finishes her day cooking and welcoming Najimi. We see Kizaki being and a Toei being for heat pieces of wall in a place full of fire and a mysterious girl which seems to be an evil Akikan. At school, Najimi says to their classmates that Kizaki was hospitalized and everyone is shocked by the news. Outside school, we see Misaki waiting for Melon and Kakeru, and they go to a cafe to talk and Misaki starts to cry and mentioning Budoko. It seems that Budoko has disappeared, so she asks them to help her find Budak. At Najimi's house, her and Yell are having dinner and suddenly Yell feels something and goes outside and she sees Budoko having a strange look and being hidden. This strange Budoko starts to attack Yell with a really dangerous power, and of course, Yell doesn't get behind, but once again she receives an impressive attack from behind, which is the same as the one who follows Najimi. Yell intercepts to protect Najimi, and she sees the Mr. Apis Akikan, who's grabbing Yell by her chin and kisses her, making Yell to disappear. Kakeru and Melon go to the hospital where Najimi is, and she tells them Yell disappeared, and then Kizaki appears and explains them that this villain is the ultimate Akikan, who came from the West Ria, and the only thing they know about her is that she wants to destroy all the Akikans. Going back to school, the class know about Najimi being hospitalized and Eureka runs to see her. At that momento, we see the evil Akikan watching them from far. Melon is near the bridge when a suspicious Yell appears and attacks her and Kakeru protects her. Then Budoko also appears and both attack them, and they realize they are imposters, so Melon starts to attack and finally she beats them. We see that above the fire provoked for Melon, 2 little lights with the colors of Yell and Budoko go back to the evil Akikan and she attacks them, making them to blow away and really. The evil Akikan says all the cans will be her position, and angry Melon tries to attack her, but it's useless since she's already tired. The evil Akikan kisses Melon and makes her to disappear, and she says to Kakeru that she mixes out the juice with herself. Kakeru is really sad and cries over Melon's can and yells with his desperation. Kakeru is and tries to drink his melon juice, but he can't since he remembers Melon. Kizaki appears to talk to Kakeru, and they go for a walk in the hospital's hall, and Kakeru asks Kizaki if she knows where Mixed Juice Akikan is, and she says her team is looking for her. Najimi also appears, and the 3 of them go out the hospital. In a moment, we see Misaki cry in the park, and a mysterious man appears in front of her. After that, Mixed Juice Akikan man's motorbike, and then her boy with Kizaki and Najimi start a persecution in Kizaki's car to chase the villain. They get her, and Kakeru begs her what she's doing, but she doesn't care and plays with Kakeru's feelings by making a fake Melon to appear and hit Kakeru. Mixed Juice Akikan says she hates the Akikmas and their owners, and Kakeru tries to talk to her again. She orders the fake Melon to finish Kakeru, but she doesn't do it, since it seems that Melon is conscious, so Kakeru takes his can and calls Melon, so it makes Melon to come back, and Mixed Juice Akikan starts to lose power. Then at the perfect momento, Otoya appears and takes the can she has hidden in her clothes and returns them to their owners. Najimi and Misaki call the girl, and they come back to their cans. When they told everything is finished, our villain makes the other Akikans she has stolen to appear and attack them. But our protagonist and his friends make their Akikans to appear and start the real fight. After confronting the villain, Melon finally stops her with her power and instead of finishes her. She grabs her chicks because none of them want to destroy her since she is only an Akikan who wants to be loved in. She starts to cry. Otoya mentions that he discovered with the investigation that she was abandoned by her owner, so that's why she started to hate Akikans who were loved. She's asked who was her owner and we see some memories where a little boy bought her in a vending machine. But cat jump over him making the kid to run scare and the cat tasting the drink, so the cat is her owner. So that's why she was abandoned and doesn't even have a name. Kakeru wants to comfort her with jokes about giving her a name and gives her the name Miku and he offers as her new owner, which makes her being blush and Melon and Najimi being jealous and start to punish him for being a fool. Otoya gives Miku a picture of the cat which is her owner and that apparently lives in the town, so she runs to find it. Our story ends with all our characters with their Akikans, Otoya and Kizaki working together as always, Gala not having the chance to confess his feelings towards Eureka, but being her friend and everyone visiting Kakeru and Melon's house.